So coming up this weekend is going to be the PFL World Championship Finals for the 2023 season, also known as PFL 10. But I am red as a tomato. I am ridiculously sunburnt this weekend. If you guys don't know, I do compete as an amateur in a couple different sports. As you guys know, I made my boxing debut maybe about a month ago now. But I am also competing as an amateur in disc golf. And obviously disc golf is outside. It was ridiculously sunny. It was ridiculously windy. I am red as a tomato, getting ready to go into university tomorrow to start my summer courses. I'm looking forward to it. It's a great look. But now let's get into these fights. I mean, it's going to be an interesting one. I do expect quite a few things to come out of this card, and not just the results of the fights themselves, because I am expecting the PFL to do a couple of big announcements. I'm expecting the PFL to maybe at least hint about the Bellator acquisition, because I'd rather hear something from PFL themselves other than just various news sources around on Twitter and such. There's also news maybe potentially about Francis Ngannou's next move, maybe potentially about Jake Paul fighting for the PFL and MMA. I know he's got a boxing fight, but I could see maybe them just mentioning something, maybe having him on the broadcast at least. And the fights are pretty good themselves. The prelims leave a little bit to be desired. The first two do, to be honest. I'll get into those when we get there. You've got Ray Cooper III taking on Derek Brunson, a pretty big acquisition for the PFL recently. Aspen Ladd, I guess you could say, is a pretty big signing for PFL. She's going to be taking on Kayla Harrison, who's a pretty big name for them. Former champion. Larissa Pacheco looking to become a back-to-back champion in the tournament. And aside from that, you've got some banger fights, which is going to be Renan Ferreira and Denis and Clay Collard versus Olivia Aubin-Mercier. They could be good fights. They're all 5 rounds. It's a massive card. It's a massive night, especially if PFL does have their normal spacing where it takes like 15 minutes between an end of a fight and the next one. Who knows how it's going to be. It is on pay-per-view. And before we do get into it though, you do have the We Want Picks Premium membership. You can sign up for a 3-day free trial. Sign up with the code ARTEM. You'll get a little article from me this week. There's no UFC on this weekend, so there probably won't be a lot of UFC content on there. But in the future, when there is UFC on, there is so much content to unlock with that We Want Picks Premium membership. Only $10 a month. You get a 3-day free trial. You can cancel during that 3-day free trial as well with my sign-up code if you don't like it. And you also do have a couple of other sponsors that I do have on the channel. BetUS and BetOnline are partners of my channel. If you wanted to sign up using my links, you will get some big deposit bonuses there as well. And now with all that out of the way, a super long intro. That might be the record for the longest intro I've ever had on my channel. Let's get into the picks. For such a massive card, I am a little bit disappointed with a couple of the prelims on this PFL Finals card. And one of them is this one here. It is the opener of the card. Stirn taking on Josh Blyden. And these guys are both grapplers, but I would not put any money on this fight at all. I think stay away from it. Stirn's striking is a little bit concerning to me, but he doesn't spend a lot of time on the feet. Stirn striking, he has his hands very low, he has his chin up and out there, and he's got his mouth wide open because he does mostly wear a white mouthpiece, and you can just see it showing. He is fighting with his mouth wide open on the feet. A little bit concerning because you can get your jaw broken by doing that. But aside from that though, when he does get the fight down to the ground, he does have a lot of success. Most of his wins are by submission, but most of his losses are also by submission, so something to worry about there. He did recently take on this fella called Vladimir Kazbekov, and Kazbekov was trying to take his head off, man. He was absolutely throwing. He was throwing from the grandstands, man. He was throwing 150% into everything he did, and he gassed out in 3 minutes. And Stirn couldn't finish him. I was a little bit disappointed with that. I thought that maybe Stirn could have finished a really tired guy in Kazbekov, but he wasn't able to get it done there in the finish, that is. His best win, coming his most recent win, took on an 11-2 opponent and beat him, and prior to that has been fighting pretty often. 4 times in the last 1.5 years. Much more active than his opponent Josh Blyden, who hasn't fought for 2.5 years and has fought 3 times in the last 5 years. I'm not too sure what's going on with Josh Blyden. I don't really know why he hasn't fought so much. Maybe he retired and now he's coming back because he's not the youngest fella. He's almost 37 years old. But to be honest with you, I was a little bit more impressed with Josh Blyden. I did go into this just looking at numbers on a page, looking at Tapology, saw that Josh Blyden hadn't fought for 2.5 years, and went into tape study thinking that I was going to pick Stirn. But my mind has actually changed. But the issue is Josh Blyden's been looking really, really good against guys that just aren't his level. Like, he did have a very close fight with probably the best opponent that he's beaten in Guy. But aside from that, he beat a 4-2 opponent, a 6-8 opponent, dominated him, and he's got a lot of tape out there. There's a lot of tape out there on Josh Blyden. NFC has a YouTube channel, so they upload all of his fights. It's actually very useful, so thank you, NFC. Blyden, I think, is going to be the better striker here. He comes out super, super aggressive every single time. He just spams kicks. He throws a lot of body kicks. He throws a lot of leg kicks. He doesn't spend too much time on the feet, because every time I'm watching Blyden and he's having success on the feet to start the rounds, he then just goes and gets a takedown. I don't really know how good his grappling is, how good his cardio is, because he does finish a lot of his fights in round number 1. But I was impressed with him. When he gets on top, he's incredibly dangerous. His signature probably is this arm triangle choke when he gets on top, but he does have a good guillotine as well. I saw him pull guillotine quite a few times, which can be worrying, especially because Jesse Stirn is going to be shooting for takedowns, and if Stirn can fight out of those guillotines and end up on top, he's going to have a lot of success. But honestly, if the grappling and wrestling cancels each other out, Blyden's going to be the better striker, and I'm going to pick Blyden. Blyden is a decent underdog here. He's plus 180, plus 185-ish, and Stirn is minus 250. Now, this is not a confident pick at all, and honestly, I would not put money on this at all, to be honest, but it was pretty fun to break down. Most people are picking Stirn. I mean, I thought I was going to go into tape study picking Stirn, and I'm not. Now, the inactivity for Blyden is one of the biggest red flags you can see, but I just wasn't impressed enough with the striking of Stirn. If this fight ends up on top, if Blyden ends up on top, he's going to have success. If the fight is on the feet, he's going to have success. So I've got to go with Blyden in this matchup. The next one's going to be Khai taking on Phil Caracappa. And if you guys don't know who Khai is, he actually is a training partner and coach of Mark Zuckerberg, who quite famously has been getting into MMA and is going to be making his, I believe, an amateur in the May debut sometime soon. He's injured at the moment. I don't really know why people are clowning Mark Zuckerberg, because he's out there doing it. You know, he's competing in those grappling tournaments. But anyway, Khai is his coach, Khai is his trainer, and I think the PFL probably saw that and then picked him up. Now, Khai wasn't very happy with me when I did say he got signed, mainly because of Zuckerberg. He's very popular on social media. He might be watching this video, so how's it going, Khai? But he is a pretty good fighter. I mean, he fights all over the world. He's been fighting quite a few times in Asia. He's fought in the USA as well a couple of times. He's been training Zuckerberg, obviously, in the USA. And he's going to be taking on Phil Caracappa, who's been on the Contender Series before and lost a pretty close fight to Ricky Steele. But I think the thing that Caracappa struggles with the most is his cardio, because this guy is a very good wrestler. His striking leaves a lot to be desired, but he's a very good wrestler, and he's a good grappler when he gets on top. Khai, on the other hand, he's more of an MMA guy. I mean, I know that sounds a little bit silly, but when I went into Khai tape study, I just didn't know what to expect, because a lot of the time you can kind of see this guy's mostly a striker, this guy's mostly a grappler. Khai does it all, because I watch some fights and Khai having success on the feet, and then he'll go for a takedown. So I'm like, oh, okay, so he's a grappler, and then I'll see fights where he's just striking. He's an MMA guy. He does it all. But the thing with Khai, I think he's going to be a lot smaller than Phil Caracappa. I mean, Phil Caracappa seems to be a pretty big guy, and I do understand that Khai has been fighting upper weight class recently, and a lot of the fights he just looked quite small. And I think Caracappa is going to be bigger than him. I think he's going to be the better wrestler. I think he can outmuscle Khai. Now, this fight does have the potential for Caracappa to have a lot of success early and then just completely gas out. That is exactly what happened when he took on this guy called Volodya Alves, where Alves knocked him out in the 3rd round because Caracappa couldn't get the takedown and he was completely gassed. But he was having a lot of success with top control in that matchup. I can see Caracappa going out there, getting the takedowns, getting the wrestling going, and just kind of camping in half guard, hanging out on top, landing a bit of ground and pound. Probably not the most exciting performance if Caracappa gets it done that way, but I do pick Caracappa to win this matchup. I'm going to pick him to win by decision, and most people have picked Caracappa. I think that his size and wrestling advantage is going to carry him to a win here. Phil Caracappa, minus 225, and Khai is plus 170. Give me Caracappa here to win using his wrestling and control. And now we move on to a trilogy fight. I do know that Tapology says it's a rematch, but this is a trilogy because these guys have fought twice already, and they are 1-1 against each other most recently. Bubba Jenkins getting the victory earlier this year. But before that, we did see Chris Wade go out there and beat Bubba Jenkins in 2021. So now we're going to finish it. We're going to finish off the rivalry on this World Championship Finals card. This is a good prelim. This is a fun prelim. It's got a little bit on the line as well for both guys because they're both relatively old. I mean, they're both probably getting towards the end of the career rather than the start. They've both almost had 30 fights for Bubba Jenkins, more than 30 fights for Chris Wade. But I think that Bubba Jenkins gets it done. I think he wins the trilogy here. And a big reason for me picking that is because of how good he looked against Chris Wade in the tournament. Only 7 months ago, Chris Wade had nothing for him. Bubba Jenkins, if you guys don't know who he is a wrestler. He does dominate with control. And Chris Wade is a very good wrestler himself. But if he's going to win the fight, he probably has to keep it on the feet and outstrike Bubba Jenkins. But in that matchup, man, just Chris Wade could not stop anything that Bubba Jenkins was doing to him. And Jenkins looked really, really good. And I looked really, really silly because I picked Chris Wade in that matchup. A really bad pick. But hindsight's always 2020. I looked like an idiot picking Wade, and I felt silly. So now I'm going to be picking Jenkins. But it really does just come up to stylistically. And another thing as well is I think Jenkins has a lot more left in the tank than Chris Wade. Chris Wade recently, he just hasn't really been looking like the guy that was fighting a few years ago in the PFL, only 2-3 years ago. And Bubba Jenkins, he's still kind of getting it. You know, did get knocked out by Jesus Pinedo, but Jesus Pinedo just recently knocked out Brendan Loughnane, you know. He beat Sunbin Joe, dominated him, got the finish over him, beat Chris Wade very, very well. Looked incredible getting the wrestling off in that one there. And I think we see Bubba Jenkins just get it done over Chris Wade again. If Chris Wade wants to win, he needs to stop the takedowns. He needs to stop Bubba Jenkins. But look at Bubba Jenkins in this photo. Jenkins is a big guy, man. He's a really, really talented wrestler. Great wrestling background. I think he gets it done over Wade again and settles this trilogy. So we've got Bubba Jenkins minus 150, Chris Wade plus 115. The odds are very close. I mean, they're 1-1 with each other. The odds were very close when they fought each other recently as well. But Jenkins looked a lot better in their last fight than Wade did. So I'm going to go with that. I'm going to go with Bubba Jenkins to win a decision. I do think the fight definitely goes the distance. But I do have Jenkins taking it out and getting the win in this one here over his rival, Chris Wade. Biaggio Ali Walsh taking on Joel Galarza Lopez. I mean, it's just PFL trying to set up Biaggio Ali Walsh. I probably won't spend too much time doing this one here. But Biaggio Ali Walsh, I know he's an amateur, but he is looking like a pretty talented guy, and I do think that he could go quite well in his pro career, but I do kind of have there's pluses and minuses for his amateur career being on such a big spotlight, because people are going to expect Biaggio Ali Walsh to jump in there as a pro and start taking on good guys, and maybe have unrealistic expectations of who he should be fighting. But for Biaggio, I think that he does take out Joel Galarza Lopez. He seems very talented, naturally talented as well. Got crazy power in his hands. He's getting KOs. He's getting finishes as well. I mean, he's just taking on guys that PFL's giving him. Building up over time. Trying to get their confidence up. Trying to get ready to make a good pro career run. I think he gets past Joel, who is undefeated. And I think he moves on. So give me Biaggio to win this one here. And now we've got the first of the tournament fights. I do believe this is going to be a prelim setting up for the big main card. Jesus Pinedo taking on Gabriel Alves Braga. I'm going to be picking Jesus Pinedo in this matchup. Now, Jesus Pinedo in the first fight, because this is a rematch, they have fought before. I thought Jesus Pinedo had a pretty good chance of taking that fight. Now, that was his first fight in about 7 months, and it was his second fight in 2 years at that time. So he didn't really have the experience, and he didn't really have the experience against high-level guys, and recently he's taken out some big names. He knocked out Brendan Loughnane with that knee when he was throwing the kick, but then he followed it up with a big KO win over Bubba Jenkins, and I thought that Bubba Jenkins was going to get the wrestling going. I mean, Pinedo took the opportunity that he had on the feet and knocked him out. Gabriel Alves Braga is very small for the weight class. I mean, he's 5'9", which isn't that small for the weight class, right? But compared to Pinedo, he's very, very small, and he is a striker for the most part. But in my opinion, he just hasn't had as tough of a run as Pinedo, and that is absolutely not a reason to pick Pinedo. But it does tell me a lot that Pinedo's knocking out Bubba Jenkins, who's a nightmare matchup, and Brendan Loughnane, who was the favourite to win it all, and a guy that people were saying is a top 5 featherweight in the world. Like, people were saying that Brendan Loughnane was that guy, and Pinedo knocked him out. Now, I do understand that Pinedo knocked him out with kind of like a lucky sort of shot, but he set it up, he got it done. Big KO win for Pinedo. Now, Braga, he knocks out Marlon Moraes. Poor Marlon Moraes, man. PFL did him dirty. UFC did him pretty dirty towards the end, and PFL did him really dirty as well himself. Takes on a very close fight against Chris Wade, and as I said, I don't think Chris Wade is that guy anymore. I don't think Chris Wade has a lot left in the tank. If you're having a close fight with Chris Wade, I'm a little bit concerned, man. I mean, he beat Jesus Pinedo by split decision, but as I said, that fight could go Pinedo's way. Now, giving it to Braga definitely isn't a bad call at all. It's going to be a 5-round fight. I think we see Pinedo get it done. I think Pinedo comes in here. I believe he's a slight underdog here. But if you go to the odds, Jesus Pinedo is plus 100. Gabriel Alves Braga is about minus 130. I've got Pinedo, man, especially in that last fight that they did have against each other. Pinedo was having a lot of success. And now, even then, he's got more experience. He's going to be the bigger guy, going to have the longer reach, going to have the longer arms. I think he can keep Braga at the end of his shots. Braga might be shooting for takedowns. But I think that we see Pinedo keep it on the feet if Braga does try and grapple, and just keep him at the end of the shots, throw the straight punches, throw the kicks down the middle, throw the leg kicks, throw the roundhouse kicks as well. I think we see Pinedo get it done. So I'm going to go with Jesus Pinedo in this matchup here. Knockout is likely, but I could see him winning a decision as well. 3-2. Very, very close fight. Well matched. I look forward to seeing these guys in a big rematch. And then we can move on to the main card, which is going to be on pay-per-view. And kicking it off is going to be Ray Cooper III taking on Derek Brunson. And my goodness, this isn't really a matchup I expected to see at the start of the year. But we're going to be getting it, and there's going to be... I mean, my goodness. I mean, this could go anyway, to be honest with you. Because Ray Cooper III, we haven't seen much from him at all. You know, he does fight at 170 typically, but he has had weight issues in the past. He missed weight big time against Carlos Leal. Looked really bad in that fight, in my opinion, against Carlos Leal as well. Weighed in at like 176 pounds. I think we found out that he was sick, where he had like a broken hand or something when he was trying to cut the weight. I don't really know the situation, but there was a reason for the massive weight miss there. And then he took on Magomedkerimov to become the champion, knocked him out as a massive underdog only a couple of years ago. But he hasn't fought for a year and 4 months, and in that year and 4 months, we've seen 24 seconds of him, because he knocked out Brett Cooper in 24 seconds. Good performance, we haven't seen him. I do believe he wasn't cleared to be in the tournament, or chose to not be in the tournament, so the PFL just never gave him any fights, and he has been quite vocal about he's upset about that, and that is a big flaw to the PFL's tournament system, which, to be honest with you guys, I actually am not a fan of it. I mean, I don't mind the idea, but the tournament, I mean, you know, it does kind of mean that a lot of fighters that are on the roster just never get fights, because Ray Cooper III, he wasn't in the tournament, so he was never given fights until now Derek Brunson's coming over, and it's going to be at 185 pounds. Ray Cooper III is 5'7". He's going to be smaller than Derek Brunson by quite a bit, because Brunson is a 185er. He is a middleweight. He's been a middleweight for, I believe, most of, if not all of his career. But my goodness, it was a rough run at the end in the UFC, because Derek Brunson, he would have some success, but then he would completely gas out. Like, he looked really bad against Dricus du Plessis. Like, that was just a sloppy fight, and it was kind of difficult to watch. And Derek Brunson, man, like, he beat Darren Till a while ago with his wrestling. He beat Kevin Holland a while ago with his wrestling, just dominated him on top. But my goodness, just in the last couple of fights, he just doesn't look like he's got it anymore. You know, he's got one round of cardio, and that's it. Like, do I believe that Derek Brunson can take Ray Cooper III down? Because that's what he's going to need to do. Absolutely. But do I think he could do it in round 1, 2, and 3? I'm going to say no, to be honest with you. And I think as long as the fight is on the feet, Ray Cooper III is going to be dangerous to get a knockout. And I think that's going to be especially true after round number 1. Because in my opinion, Brunson is going to come out here in this fight, and he's going to win the first round. Because, you know, typically he looks pretty good in the first round. He looks like a good version of Brunson. But then he's just got no cardio left anymore, man. He's just got nothing left in the tank. You saw that against Dricus du Plessis. He's going to gas out, I think, and Ray Cooper III is going to knock him out in either round 2 or 3. Now, Ray Cooper III's a pretty sizable favourite, so I don't really like the bets on him money line. Maybe Ray Cooper III by KO, but they'll probably be similar. Cooper the third is minus 175, and Brunson's plus 130. I can see Brunson winning this fight. I mean, if he can dominate in round 1 and get a finish in round 1 with ground and pound or something like that, or maybe a submission, Renan could choke if Ray Cooper the third gives up his back. But I think Ray Cooper the third just needs to survive round 1, and I think he can get a knockout in round 2 or 3. I'm more so leaning round 3, but if Brunson gasses really, really badly, then it's going to be a round 2 KO. I think that's just what it comes down to. I'm going to go with Cooper the third to outlast a round 1 Derek Brunson and then get a finish. And the next fight we've got is Kayla Harrison taking on Aspen Ladd. This is a short notice replacement fight because Kayla Harrison was meant to take on Julia Budd. And once again, Kayla Harrison is another fighter that has been quite upset with the PFL not putting her in the tournament. Well, sorry, not putting her in fights because I believe she chose to not do the tournament again. But to be fair to the PFL, they pay her a lot of money. I think that she's getting, I could be wrong here, but she is getting pretty decent in the 6 figures just to show up and fight. So the PFL's probably like, you know what, like that's not really in our budget to put her on cards not in the tournament. So I can kind of see it from a business standpoint for PFL, because she's on a mega contract fighting for the PFL. But she's going to be taking on Aspen Ladd. And Aspen Ladd, I just don't know what's happened to her, because I feel like she's regressed. I do genuinely feel like Aspen Ladd has gotten worse. She did beat Karolina Sobek recently, who was 4-1. Now, that's a 4-1 fighter. I mean, like, recently, you were ranked. You were ranked. I believe you were in the top 5 at one point in the UFC only a few years ago. You're in the top 10. I think only like 2 years ago in the UFC. And then you lose to a 7-5 Elena Kolesnik because Elena Kolesnik can throw punches and you are standing there trying to throw punches. Like, let's say in the camera, she's just out here wailing punches, like, way too far away. She's punching the air. Just no distance management whatsoever. So Kolesnik just beats her up from range, really. And then you beat Sobek. But Sobek's 4-1. She's new into her career, and you were a former top 10 UFC fighter. I think Kayla Harrison comes out there and just absolutely dominates her. It's going to be interesting to see Kayla Harrison at 145, because it is worth noting Harrison has fought at 155 in her career. She said she could make 145, but she couldn't make 135, and it's probably why the UFC never made a big bid to sign her, because the UFC's 145-pound division, I don't think they were prepared to build a complete division around Kayla Harrison, because it didn't work when they tried to do it with Chris Cyborg. So I'm going to go with Kayla Harrison, and I think Kayla Harrison dominates her, to be honest with you. Harrison is going to be a huge favorite in this matchup. I mean, she's minus 750, Aspen Ladd's plus 450. I think Kayla Harrison gets the fight down to the ground and just dominates, to be honest with you. Probably gets a finish. I mean, Ladd's got good wrestling, she does, so maybe she can defend a couple of takedowns, but even then on the feet, Ladd just can't land anything because she punches from like 3 meters away. It's unbelievable. So I'm going to go with Kayla Harrison to win this matchup by finish. And now we move on to more tournament fights, and these are going to be the final fights of the card. The fighters that are fighting for $1 million. And Impa Kasanganay, what a career turnaround for him, taking on Josh Silveira. And Josh Silveira, I must say, that's a pretty good mullet, you know. Like, I mean, I'm trying to grow one out right now, but hey, that's a good mullet. That is years and years of dedication to grow that mullet that Josh Silveira has. So I've got to give my respect to it. But Impa Kasanganay, man, I'm going to give this guy quite a lot of flowers to start off the breakdown of his fight, because he got released from the UFC, in my opinion, a little bit too early, and he proved everyone that it was a little bit too early. I believe he fought Gooden at like 185, and then he fought Osama Asadi at 205, and he's had his whole career at 205 pounds in the PFL, and he does look too small every single time, because I do believe that Impa Kasanganay at 185 pounds works, but I don't think he really does work that well at 205 pounds. But that's a silly thing to say, because look at him. He's on a win streak, he's on a finish streak, he's getting his first KOs of his career, he's got 3 wins by knockout, and all of them come since he left the UFC. His win over Jared Gooden was his first ever KO in his entire career, and now he's just KOing everybody. It's very, very impressive for Impa Kasanganay. He's transferred those skills and that quickness up to 205 pounds, and these other guys, they just can't keep up with him. Now, he's taken on Josh Silveira, and Josh Silveira is a very legitimate talent, but Josh Silveira, again, I feel like Josh Silveira, all of his wins are over really good guys, to be fair, but they're not over the best guys that the PFL could give him, because he did beat Martin Hamlet. Incredible win, because Martin Hamlet is a great Greco-Roman background, knocks him out in round number 1, but then takes on Amari Akhmedov, and it's just a little bit too much for him. A little bit too much too soon, maybe you could say, but at that point he was 9-0. Then he takes on my guy, Sam K. I mean, look at Sam K's record all you want, but Sam K's out here doing it, man. He's representing Tonga. I don't see many other fighters out here representing Tonga in the big stage in MMA, so got to give him respect for that. And Sam K is dangerous on the feet. He is a good striker. And then he takes on Dylan Monte, a small guy for 205 himself, scrappy, wins by injury, knocks out Ty Flores, who is, yeah, I'll move on. I think Kasanganay wins. I really do. Now, I do believe he's going to look small in there against Josh Silveira, but on the feet, Impa Kasanganay has recently found a lot of power moving up weight classes, and he's a grappler. For the most part, he's a wrestler grappler, and I think he can mix it up against Josh Silveira. Now, unfortunately, he probably will have to use quite a lot of energy to get Josh Silveira down to the ground if that's what he tries to do, because Silveira is a very big guy himself, and Silveira is also a pretty dangerous guy himself on the ground, because if you look at him, most of those wins are by submission. But another thing about Silveira is most of his wins are in round number 1. Impa Kasanganay is not really going to be cutting that much weight, so he's going to have a little bit of an advantage in that sort of aspect when it comes down to the later rounds. So I'm going to go with Kasanganay to win this fight. And I'm going to go with Kasanganay to win this fight very late. I'm going to go with either a decision or like a round 4 or 5 finish. I think it's going to be competitive. Silveira probably has a lot of success in the first, maybe first 2 rounds. But I think Kasanganay can turn it around and get a finish very late in the fight, maybe round 4 or 5. I've got Kasanganay here, and he is the slight favourite, I do believe, if you look at the odds of Kasanganay. Minus 175, Josh Silveira is plus 130. And now we can move on to Magomedkerimov taking on Sadibou. And these two have fought each other before. Magomedkerimov, he's an interesting case to me, because sometimes he looks like an absolute world beater, looks incredible, and then sometimes he looks like he's not really having the best performance in the world. But this year, he wasn't really given the toughest of all challenges when he was trying to build up his record for the year, because he took on Benegli, just absolutely smoked him, come out there super aggressive, knocked him out early, beat David Zawada, absolutely smoked him again. And then he beat Solomon Renfro, who gave him some problems and took that fight on like 5 days notice. So that's kind of what I mean by Magomedkerimov not really having the toughest road to the title this year. Whereas Sadibou beat some pretty solid guys, and he finished them as well. Beat Carlos Leal, who's a very good fighter. Beat Shane Mitchell by KO, spinning wheel kick, brutal finish as well. Mega highlight reel finish. Finishes Jarrah Hussein Al-Salawi, who, to be honest with you, we did learn that Jarrah Hussein Al-Salawi just isn't as good as we all thought he was. But, I mean, Sadibou got it done, and he beat Delano Taylor as well, who was a guy... That was last year, actually, for the final, sorry. I was going to say he's a guy who's fought for the title before, because it was against Sadibou. Magomedkerimov didn't really compete last year, but he did take on T-Bow in like an exhibition, not an exhibition fight, but a non-tournament bout. And he looked really, really bad. So I was a little bit nervous about how he was going to look in the tournament this year. But maybe Gleison T-Bow is just like the anti-Dagestani wrestling sort of fighter, because a lot of people think that he could have beaten Khabib as well. And he's just fought a lot of these guys from that area of the world and had a lot of success. So maybe Gleison T-Bow just has that style. But I'm going to go with Magomedkerimov. Magomedkerimov has beaten Sadibou in the past, but more importantly, it's a massive clash of styles. It just comes down to if Kerimov wrestles, because sometimes he doesn't, sometimes he just strikes, and when he does, he doesn't look that good. Sadibou is a striker, incredibly long, 80-inch reach, 6'3" for the division at 170 pounds, an older guy, but an older guy that has found a lot of success this year. And he's also found a lot of finishing ability this year as well, because he hasn't really been finishing guys all that much until this year. He's just started knocking everybody out, which is awesome. But I'm going to go with the guy that I believe can go out there and get the takedowns and wrestle Sadibou. So give me Magomedkerimov to win this fight. Maybe by submission, more likely by decision, using that wrestling. Hopefully he just doesn't waste time on the feet, because it's what he does tend to do in his fights sometime. He strikes way too much. He strikes in fights that he probably shouldn't be striking in. And I'm going to go with Kerimov. I mean, if he wrestles, he's definitely going to win this fight. He is the favorite, minus 200 on one sportsbook, minus 150 on one sportsbook right now. And Sai is about plus 140, plus 150 as the underdog. And now we can move on to Larissa Pacheco taking on Marina Mokhnatkina. I mean, I've got to go with Larissa Pacheco. she's looking really good. She looked pretty bad to start the year though. She had a pretty questionable performance when she did come back against Julia Budd, because Julia Budd did give her a couple of problems, but then she reminded us what she can do with a first minute KO over Amber Leibrock, who I didn't think was that great anyway, and then Elena Kolesnik knocked her out in 14 seconds. Unbelievable. She's knocked out Kolesnik, I believe, 3 times now. But yeah, her most impressive performance by far is that win over Kayla Harrison, where she was able to out-grapple Kayla Harrison in times and have success in the very small amount of time that the fight was on the feet. And she's going to need to use that grappling in this matchup here, because Marina Mokhnatkina does have a Sambo background. I believe she has a Judo background as well. But if you do look into her, it had a lot of success at the European and world level in combat Sambo. And she's had a good year herself. You know, she beat Amber Leibrock, who I did say I don't think was ever that great to begin with. But she beat Evelyn Martins, who's a very young up-and-coming prospect that the PFL was trying to build. Probably trying to build too early, because imagine if Evelyn Martins ran into Larissa Pacheco. That wouldn't have been a good look. Beat Yoko Higashi, but Yoko Higashi just didn't have anything for her, to be honest with you. Yeah, I'm going to go Pacheco. I'm going to go Pacheco by KO, but maybe not first round, maybe third round. I mean, Marina Mokhnatkina is going to be trying to get those takedowns, but Pacheco showed very, very good grappling, improved grappling against Kayla Harrison in the last year's tournament, and I think that she can do it again. I'm going to go with her to win by knockout, maybe second or third round KO. If she can get it done in the first round, I'd be very, very impressed. Pacheco is about minus 600. Minus 550. Mokhnatkina's plus 400, plus 450. If Mokhnatkina's going to win, she's going to have to out-wrestle Pacheco and stay on top for 5 rounds. I don't think she can do that. Pacheco's dangerous on the ground. We saw that against Kayla Harrison. And my goodness, is she dangerous on the feet. She can throw big power. So now we move on to Renan Garcia taking on Denis Goltsov. And I'm going to go with Denis Goltsov. Denis Goltsov has impressed me this year. I think that Denis Goltsov is one of those guys that if he can beat Renan Ferreira, he's one of the best heavyweights in the world. Like, maybe not a top 5 heavyweight in the world, but I would say probably like top 10, top 15 heavyweight in the world. Goltsov's good, man. And he proved that this year. Knocked out Jorgen De Castro with an absolutely brutal knockout. My goodness, that's another highlight reel. De Castro was out, man. I mean, he slumped down. Crazy knockout win. And he dominated Jordan Heidemann, who was on the Ultimate Fighter and had success in his own this year. Now, Renan Ferreira, very, very good fighter. And he's going to be very tricky for Denis Goltsov, because Renan Ferreira, incredibly long. He's 6'8" with an 85-inch reach. And he does have incredible grappling as well. Very good jiu-jitsu. But he's dangerous on the feet himself. You know, this year he did knock out Matthias Scheffel. But for literally any heavyweight in the world, a Matthias Scheffel matchup is a free first round knockout win. Because Matthias Scheffel, I believe he's got like 10 losses now. He's been KO'd in 9 of them. Scheffel, mate, it's time. It's not good for you. And then he beat Maurice Green. Looked really good against Maurice Green. And Maurice Green himself, post-UFC, has looked quite good. And I thought he had a pretty good performance himself recently this year with Maurice Green. But we saw Renan Ferreira just finish him off. I like Goltsov because he can mix it up. He's a big boy himself. He's 6'5" with a long reach himself. Very powerful on the feet. But Goltsov can mix it up with the wrestling. If he does choose to do that, though, he is going to be in danger, because Renan Ferreira is dangerous on the ground. He can throw up submissions if he has to. So Goltsov's got a lot to avoid here, but I do believe we see Goltsov go out there. And if he can get that win over Ferreira, it's going to cement himself as I said, a top 10, maybe top 15 best heavyweight in the world. I think Goltsov's a really good fighter, and I think we're about to see it. We've got Goltsov about minus 250-ish, Renan Ferreira about plus 200. One thing I can almost guarantee you, this fight won't go the distance. I've said that before with heavyweight fights, and they do go the distance, but this one shouldn't go the distance. I've got Goltsov by finish. It'll be in the first 3 rounds, most likely. This is going to be a banger, but if Goltsov gets it done, I do believe it's going to be by finish, and relatively early. And now the main event. It's going to be Clay Collard taking on Olivia Aubin-Mercier. Olivia Aubin-Mercier is a very, very good fighter. It's just a shame that he makes fights that should be very fun incredibly boring. He did that when he took on Shane Burgos. Now, Shane Burgos wasn't really having the most success on the feet. And to be fair, the Shane Burgos 155 pounds PFL tournament experiment hasn't gone that well. I mean, Burgos isn't here, is he? He took on Clay Collard in an absolute banger of a fight. My goodness, I'll start talking about Clay Collard soon, but Clay Collard was on some fun fights this year. Olivier Aubin-Mercier was not at all. This guy's a wrestler, and his fights suck. I'll be honest with you. He made a Shane Burgos fight boring. No one else can do that. He did knock out Anthony Romero, who is also a Canadian. I mean, good win for him there. And he did finish Bruno Miranda by knockout. But Olivier Aubin-Mercier, what he wants to do is he wants to wrestle, he wants to backpack, and he wants dominant position, and that's what he does. And he's very good at doing that. The thing is, it's just not exciting to watch. And Clay Collard's the opposite, man. Like, Clay Collard's fights, I mean, I could talk all day about Clay Collard's fights, about his career. He gave up MMA to go for a pro boxing career. When that didn't really work out so much, he come back. He beat Anthony Pettis, a sizable underdog, not a massive underdog, but a sizable underdog. Has a banger fight against Yamato Nishikawa, who was briefly signed to the UFC, but had contract issues that didn't work out. Nishikawa lights up his legs. Banger of a fight. Nishikawa has a pretty good performance, to be fair, and he is so small for 155. Nishikawa should fight at a lower weight class. And then he takes on Stevie Ray. I believe Stevie Ray has now retired, so good for Stevie Ray for a pretty good career. Knocks out Stevie Ray, was able to just thwart off the grappling, gets the KO. And then a banger fight with Shane Burgos, man. Like, this guy loves big fights. And Clay Collard, you can see he does have good boxing. He is a good striker. A lot of his losses in the PFL as well, I would say, have been bad decisions. Like, he did lose to Alex Martinez in an absolute blatant robbery, I will say, last year. His loss to Rauge Manfio as well was pretty marginal, I would say. And I think Clay Collard goes out there and can't defend the takedowns against Olivier Mercier. If the fight is on the feet, Collard's gonna have a very good chance of knocking him out. And if the fight stays on the feet, it's gonna be a really, really fun fight. But I do just want to say, Olivier Aubin-Mercier's wrestling and grappling is very, very hard to stop because he's got a very awkward style. If Clay Collard can stop it, he's got a good chance of getting the KO. But I think Olivier Aubin-Mercier wins it, and the bet odds agree because you got Aubin-Mercier minus 250. Clay Collard plus 200, but my goodness, if you're a fan of fun fights, you're a fan of Clay Collard. I mean, Olivier Aubin-Mercier, he did get a few finishes, which is kind of cool for him, but honestly, he made a Shane Burgos fight boring, and for that, I'll never forgive him. So yeah, give me Olivier Aubin-Mercier to win, most likely by decision, but it could be a late finish because Collard's going to get tired having to defend takedowns all the time. He's probably going to have Olivier Aubin-Mercier on his back, backpacking him, which is going to be tough for both guys. I'm going to go with Mercier. I think he does win by decision, but if Collard wins, it's going to be by KO most likely, unless he just lights up Olivier Aubin-Mercier on the feet for 5 rounds and just doesn't get taken down and doesn't get the finish. I've got Aubin-Mercier in the final. Let me know what you guys think. I do apologize because the video wasn't that great. I did record this straight after my sporting event that I did have over the weekend, so I'm a little bit tired, but this should be a good card. I'm looking forward to it. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching.